Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Welcome once again, guys, to African Dawah Revival. Okay, so today we're going to discuss. I'm changing the style a little bit, guys, if you've noticed. So today I'm going to be showing you on paper. Okay, so today we will discuss one of the early church fathers or influencers. So this individual is actually very popular in the Catholic church and the Catholic side of the Christian world. Okay, his name is Saint Augustine, and even most contemporary Christians, they actually use like some of his reasoning. Okay, so when you talk about people like the social Trinitarians, you see them using this a lot. So the argument that he proposes is like it's not like social Trinitarian in a sense, but he's trying to show that there have to be three things here. Without it being three things or three persons, then you cannot have a God. Okay, so his reasoning goes something like this. I'm just showing you the one that I have here. So it starts off with this. Okay, it says, see, a perfectly loving God. So they are using this attribute of love. Okay, so perfect being theology basically. So a perfectly loving God has to create an order, and the order has to be equal to him. So this is the idea. So a perfectly loving God cannot just, he needs someone else to love. Basically, he needs to express that love, because probably these guys don't believe in divine simplicity, that there's no potentiality in God, everything is actualized and everything is like that. So a perfectly loving God has to create another God. See, these guys, they will not actually have any problem with that. Okay, especially the social Trinitarians. But anyway, let's just get to the main argument. A perfectly loving God has to create an order. Okay, and the order has to be equal to him. Okay, so the order has to be equal to him. You see, this second part is that if he creates someone else, or he brings into existence, or caused, or whatever method you use, begotten or proceeded, whatever, another person has to be there, because, and this person cannot be lesser than him, because if he's lesser than him, the perfect love will not be expressed. Meaning, you cannot love someone. If you love someone that is not equal to you, somehow that is bad. Like you are loving somebody that is not the perfect way to express love. The perfect way to express love would be to love someone else. Okay, now, so another person. Okay, so now they now put the condition like this: if he cannot do that, then he is weak. Here they're talking about God, but anyway, if he cannot do that, then he is weak, and we know that God is omnipotent, right? So they're assuming that he can do it. Okay, and if he can but he doesn't do it, he's envious or selfish or evil or something like that. And someone that is a God that is selfish or envious cannot be God, according to them, like using perfect being theology, that if God is actually selfish and evil, or maybe God is envious, then he cannot be God, because he needs to create another person, but he doesn't want to. He is selfish with the love. And you might be thinking, like, what kind of nonsense argument is this? But just follow it, because it's actually, maybe you are actually right. It's actually a nonsense argument, but this just shows you the length that these people will go to prove this doctrine of Trinity. They are ready to make these kind of claims. They are now laying down things for God, like, see. And guess what? When we say, for example, the Muslims say, for example, that God cannot become a man, denying the incarnation and all of that, they're like, are you limiting God? How can you limit God to something? Guess who is limiting God here? Saying if God cannot do this, then God is wicked, then he has to do it. And if he's not, and if he doesn't do it, then he's envious. Look at what is going on here. So yeah, so I now made like a refutation basically of what they're saying. So the first one here says like, see, a loving God, okay, doesn't need to express love to another to be loving, okay, because God is also independent by definition. So one of the attributes of God, using perfect being theology, the same attributes, the same criteria they're using, is independence. God is complete in of himself. He doesn't need another person. Okay, so the moment you're talking about a need, okay, a need in God, then you're not talking about God anymore, because God by definition doesn't need. So you see, this need, it doesn't apply to God. God needs nothing. Okay, Now, God is independent by definition. So you cannot just use, okay, now, even if you now say like a loving God, a loving God, why can't a loving God love himself? Why does he need to create someone and compromise another nature of his, which is independence? A loving God loves himself. He knows himself and is independent in and of himself. He doesn't need another person. So this language of he has to or he needs to create another is already not talking about God anymore. So this kind of God will be deficient, meaning he needs someone else to express love to. He needs someone else to speak to or something like this. So this kind of thing, yeah, is completely rejected. And in the Islamic narrative, we don't believe in any of this. We believe God's independent in and of himself. He doesn't need another person to love. He doesn't need another person to talk to. He's not dependent on the things that we humans are. So in a way, this is like Entrepreneurization, you know? When you think like, when I talk, I need someone to actually respond to me. Or if I say I'm talking right now, who am I talking to? Now that question is there. Like, who am I talking to actually? Or who is going to respond to what? Am I just talking to myself? Guess what? When we are talking about God, God doesn't need anybody to talk to. God can talk to himself. Okay? He doesn't need, because when you say you need somebody to talk to, we're not talking about God anymore. Okay? Now, the second point here is that, yeah, to create, yeah, as I said earlier, to create another is already compromising his independence. Now, to create an equal, because he's omnipotent. So they now use this criteria that, see, he will be able to do it. Why? Because God is all powerful. Okay? So they are saying God is all powerful, therefore he can create another God. All powerful means he can do, he has power to do anything, basically. That's what they are saying. But the point is this. It's like saying this. So I now make some kind of arguments. Like, see, if I said, if God cannot make this rock, so there's a particular rock. If I say this is a rock, and I said, if God cannot make this rock a God, then he's not omnipotent. Okay? So would that make sense? If I say God should make this rock, if God cannot make this rock a God, then he's not omnipotent. He's not all powerful. You see, this kind of idea is nonsense, because you are the one setting the criteria. Then you are setting what God should do. Like, if God cannot do this, then he's not God. Who are you? And why would God do that? Because if another God is there, that's already polytheism. Okay, why would God? It's like saying, so the next one follows like this. If I say, if God cannot be polytheistic, okay, then he's weak. He's not omnipotent because he cannot be polytheistic. If he wanted, then he's not capable and weak. If he wanted to do it but he cannot do it, then he is weak. What? Imagine that kind of criteria. Such that, why are we even defending monotheism in the first place if God can do anything? So the problem where they have is that they are thinking that God can do absolutely everything, even something that is contradictory, even something that is contradictory to his nature. These people, they probably believe in contradictions, okay? Of course, because they believe in the Trinity anyway. So the contradiction is not something strange to them. So they believe in like maybe contradictions that God can actually create. Don't you guys see like God creating another God? That's already two gods. See, we don't even need to ask ourselves, can he do it or not? Once there's two gods, that is not the God of Abraham anymore. We only worship one God. And this God, by definition, is independent. And he doesn't go against his nature. Okay? So that's another thing to say. So another one is like, if God cannot create 1 million other equal gods, then he's not omnipotent. What are we even talking about then? Because if you want to use that, okay, he's omnipotent, he can do it, so he can create 1 million gods. What? This is absolutely ridiculous, guys. So now, the third point is there. The third point is that, to say that if God is capable but not willing to do something would make God envious. Okay? So, first of all, if God is like selfish, you know that word selfish is wrong. When you use words like selfish or envious, it's wrong, because you shouldn't use that word, because it already has a negative connotation. What you use that is God is independent. It's like saying if God is capable but he's independent. Like, see, first of all, even if, like, let's say a selfish God, Even a selfish God doesn't mean, but they are using perfect being theology. So to them, a selfish or envious God that wants to be alone on himself, he doesn't need anybody, they think that is not God. Guess what? You're wrong. Because God is actually, he doesn't want partners, for example. God ridicules or God condemns people that actually associate partners with him. So while you guys are talking about if he wants, he's saying no, you don't share. I don't share my kingdom with nobody. Okay, I don't. There's nobody. I don't have a partner in this. I don't have any partner. I'm alone. I'm independent. So if you are saying that is wrong, because human beings, we need to, we think if someone is like independent, so independent that he doesn't need anybody, we think he's selfish. We think he's envious. That doesn't apply to God. So this criteria is nonsense. This is just where they just put something in there to just justify what they have been saying all this while. And another thing is that the second point is that creating another God is against God's necessary attributes, as I've said. So not capable. So if you think God can go against his essential attribute to not be selfish, okay, then you don't understand the essential attributes. Okay, they are not optional. They are necessary. Okay, they are necessary. It's not something you can remove and then put it back on. For example, God is uncreated and God is immortal. These attributes are necessary, just like God is independent. It's not something that he gained. It's something that is by definition, God has it. So to ask that kind of question, that if God is capable to, but if God can go against he cannot go against his own nature. Okay, God doesn't go against his own nature. It's not about willing or anything. God is in your own mind that you think that God should go against his nature. It doesn't. So at the end of the day, guys, what we care about, because we are the Abrahamic faith, we care about monotheism, right? We care about monotheism right there. So you can ask that question: that can an all-powerful being become polytheistic? Okay, just because he's all-powerful and is one God, then can he become polytheistic? If you now say, yeah, he can do it because he's omniscient, then you have a problem, because you don't understand what is monotheism anymore. Once you have more than one, then you're talking about polytheism, and that's not the God of Abraham. Simple. Maybe it's another God that you guys believe in, but that is not the God of Abraham. Okay, and because God of Abraham doesn't go against his nature, so tomorrow he cannot become immortal. So you say, can God become immortal? If he cannot do that, then it's Auzubillah. This is a nonsense argument. So you can see even people like this, and the people that actually use this are the social Trinitarians, which I've been exposing. But the idea came from like the earliest form of it. You find it in Augustine, Saint Augustine, in 4th century after Jesus. Okay, so you can see that this argument has holes everywhere, and it doesn't work. And all the things they are trying to do, for example, a loving God, someone can be loving and he doesn't need to have another person. You can love yourself, for example, and many other things. And when we now bring the whole context into picture, i.e., we bring the entire attribute of God into picture, we realize that God cannot compromise any of his nature, so that it will please you guys, so that it will please you in your own doctrine. No. If you want to believe in a God that is like that is dependent intrinsically, then go with that. That is not the God of Abraham. That's the whole point we are making here. So guys, I hope you can follow this argument. So the next time you see someone making that kind of argument, you can just ask them those questions. That can an all-powerful monotheistic God become polytheistic because he's all-powerful? Can God become immortal? Okay, ask them those kind of questions, because he can do it. If he cannot do it, then he's weak. No, these are nonsense arguments. May Allah protect us from this kind of nonsense thinking. So I just wanted to expose that, guys. So even there are people like this, by the way, Saint Augustine is respected. See the kind of arguments he's making. So may Allah save us from this kind of thinking. So guys, like this video, share, and subscribe to this channel. And may Allah accept it from us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.